This 50mm f1.4 AIS Nikkor lens may be the Rodney Dangerfield of 50mm lenses. My reference to Rodney Dangerfield, some of my viewers that are more closer to my age will probably understand what that's about. For you younger folk, there was a comedian back in, what would it be, the late 70s through the 80s, a guy named Rodney Dangerfield. And his whole shtick was that he got no respect. And unlike Rodney, this lens probably deserves some, but the 50mm f1.4 Nikkor, and really all the 50mm Nikkors, don't get a lot of attention. I wonder why that is. So, been thinking about that. You know, you probably knew that kid in high school that got good grades. They weren't the best grades, but they were really good. I mean, he was almost at the top. And he wasn't especially handsome, but he was okay looking. And, you know, he showed up every day, did his job. He was, you know, he just did everything kind of right. But he wasn't very exciting. You know, he never got in any trouble. He was always just, you know, doing his thing and not very exciting. And consequently, didn't get much attention from people. And that's the 50mm Nikkor. Nikon cameras and lenses back in the film days were the professional's choice. You know, if you were a photojournalist or if you shot fashion or, if, you know, really just about anything 35mm, if you showed up with a Nikon professional camera and their lenses, you were fixed. Nobody questioned that you had the right equipment. Nikons were the pro's choice for a lot of uses. And yet today somehow, with the use of vintage lenses on the mirrorless cameras, they don't seem to get a whole lot of attention. I mean, there's a lot of lenses that are far, you know, inferior optically that get a lot more attention. I mean, back when I was shooting, you know, film predominantly, if you brought me a Pentacon 50mm or a Helios or one of those lenses, I'd have said, why are you using that? It's trash. You know, go get a Nikon or get something that's decent. You know, people would have scoffed at you, laughed at you if you tried to use some of those lenses back then. And yet today, some of those lenses are revered for their image quality. And I think it's just a lot to do with what's expected, was expected back then, what's expected now, what was in vogue or in fashion then and versus now. You know, back then when I was shooting film, if I had a lens that delivered sharp, crisp images with good contrast, good color, and then when I used them wide open, if I got good, soft, just smooth, creamy backgrounds, I'm happy. That's really what I was looking for. And yet today, you know, we're looking for a lot of things that these inferior lenses produce. Things like swirly bokeh and soap bubble bokeh and, you know, all these things that, I mean, we want some sharpness, but we're willing to give up some of the good image quality to get some of these weird background effects. And not really weird, but back in my film days, they just weren't what we were looking for. And there's nothing wrong, you know, with that. I think the main use of the shooting an aperture wide open and softening your background was really just to isolate your subject from the background, you know, and that's kind of a cinematic look. You know, you get the subject's well in focus and the background being soft and out of focus, then it doesn't distract from the subject, the main subject. And yet today, some of our background effects, the swirly bokeh and soap bubbles and all that kind of stuff, become as much a part of the subject as the subject. You know, they're no longer just in the background. And I don't know, to me, there's times I find that a bit distracting. Now, I say all that, and yet I have tried using some. I have a video where I experimented with some Petzval designed Cooke Kinnick lenses that are made for 16mm movie cameras on my micro four thirds cameras, and they create just amazing swirly bokeh effects. I mean, and they really are cool looking. I get that, but all that attention in the background, all that stuff going on in the background, really does tend to distract from your subject to a certain degree. at that point, your background and the subject all become part of the image, and there is no separated background at that point. Not really, not like we think of, we're used to think of. So the Nikkor lenses just do an amazing job. In fact, the very first vintage lens I ever used on my Micro Four Thirds cameras was this 50mm. This is an old 50mm f1.4, and it's pre-AI. It doesn't have the auto indexing notch for the or step for the aperture, the meter indexing, and it's just an older version. It a very capable lens. This one is multi-coated, but it's an older design, and Nikon has just improved on it. I've got other 50mm Nikkors. This is a 50mm f2 Nikkor. There's some people that say that this 50mm f2 Nikkor is one of the sharpest lenses Nikon ever made. And it's a good sharp lens, there's no question. But one I really enjoy using is this newer one. I found this at an antique flea market for 10 bucks. And it's just in beautiful shape. 50mm f1.4, very compact for a 50mm f1.4 lens compared to some of the others. It is quite compact. You know, for my Micro Four Thirds cameras, I'm using it on an adapter, of course, so it'll fit on my Micro Four Thirds cameras. If you haven't used Nikkor lenses, there's a couple of things to be aware of. Number one, the focus direction is backwards from what you'll see on a lot of other cameras. So when you turn this lens, well, it depends on which way you're looking at it, but if you turn it, if you're looking at the front of the lens, if you turn it counterclockwise, you're going towards infinity. Where most lenses, when you turn them that direction, you're going to infinity. Here you're going away from infinity. So the focus direction is backwards. And compared to some lenses, the aperture direction is backwards also. You can see that, you know, f16 is the smallest? Yeah, f16 is here, and then you get to f1.4. It's the opposite direction. So if you're used to using some vintage lenses, you may find the Nikkors, till you get used to them, a little bit weird because everything's backwards. And that was just one of the things about Nikons. Back in the film days when I switched from Canon to Nikon, that kind of drove me crazy for a little bit because I was always going the wrong direction when I'm changing the aperture or trying to focus. I'm going the wrong way. So that's just something to be aware of. But another thing to be aware of is that these lenses produce fantastic image quality. They're good and sharp wherever you need it. If you shoot this lens wide open, it's just the tiniest bit soft, which is good for portraiture. Nice, smooth, creamy backgrounds. If you stop it down to about f2, you get an improved sharpness with a still very soft backgrounds. By the time you stop it down to f2.8, it's nice and sharp, stays that way pretty much through the rest of its range. And so it's a very capable lens, very versatile, delivers solid image quality, and really kind of hard to beat. And yet, like I say, somehow in this world of vintage lenses and stuff, they don't get much attention. I don't think anyone, you know, says they're no good or anything. It's just there's not much excitement generated towards these. You know, people are looking at Helios lenses and the Asahi Pentax or the Takamar lenses, and even the Minolta Rocors and Pentacons and all kinds of lenses get literally more attention than the Nikons do. I'm not really sure why that is. And the Nikon lenses are not necessarily more expensive. And there's other Nikon lenses that do get some attention, like the 105 f2.5 Nikkor is a very popular lens. The 55mm, both f3.5 and f2.8 micro Nikkors are pretty popular. And you know, some of their other wide angles and stuff, you know, get some attention, but and their telephotos. But the thing is, Nikon lenses in general are all just solid performers. You know, if you want a line of lenses that will deliver the goods and get you good solid image quality, Nikkors are kind of hard to beat. Anyway, so I'm going to be using this on my EM5 Mark II today. I'm going to go out and take some pictures and just to spend a little time shooting with this. I'm downtown here in Oklahoma City. I'm going to wander around. There's a gardens area a little further south of here that I'm going to go to as well. just going to get out and take some pictures and have some fun with this lens, so you can kind of see how it does. If you happen upon a Nikkor, a 50mm Nikkor, if it's in good working condition, you can be pretty much assured that you're going to get great images. One of the cool things is a Nikkor is really easy to check. If you get a Nikon lens, like say you find one at a garage sale or something, one of the cool things is there's no switch for manual to automatic like a Takumar or some of the other M42 lenses. If you turn the aperture ring, you should see the aperture just open and close, right? So it should just open and close. If you stop it down, there is a lever on the back that you can kind of flip and you can watch it open and close. You know, you can see that. But as long as that aperture is opening and closing smoothly, that part's working good. The focus should turn smooth. And the Nikkors are beautifully made. They're, you know, if they haven't had something go on with them, I mean, if they're not dried up or the lubricant's not dried up or anything, then they'll focus very smoothly. They're really nice, and they're just beautifully made. Just solid quality equipment. So anyway, I'm gonna take this thing out and take some pictures. I've got this lens hood is actually made for the 50mm f2 Nikkor. It's a Nikon hood, but it'll work on this one. And the Nikon hoods are nice in that you don't have to screw them on. They've got little buttons here on the side that actually compress the filter ring, so you can just snap them on. And I always like to use a lens hood, just kind of keep some extraneous light out and improve contrast. But I'm gonna get out and take some pictures, and I'll let you take a look at those and catch up with you afterwards. Whew, well, it's cold outside. I like these gloves that have the open fingertips. You can actually do things with your hands with the gloves on. Anyway, had some fun taking those pictures. I hope you enjoyed looking at them. Nikon lenses, and this 50mm f1.4 Nikkor, just a solid performer. Really, there's nothing bad you can say about them. Mechanically, they're beautifully. Optically, they do a great job. And if you're looking for a lens that's a solid performer, going to give you nice, clean, soft backgrounds when you open it up wide, good sharpness, great image quality. You know, the color renditions are good. The contrast is good. You know, Nikkor lenses are just hard to beat. Here's a pro tip for you. When you go out and you start shooting with a vintage lens or any kind of manual lens on your mirrorless camera, make sure you set your image stabilization to the correct focal length before you get started. Shot about a half dozen images and then remembered that I had been shooting a 24mm lens on here and went, oh yeah, that's not going to be right. So I set the image stabilization and then went back and reshot some images. Not sure, I mean, I can't really tell from the screen if it made that much difference, but I'm sure when I blow them up on a computer, if I get critical about it, I'll probably be able to see some difference. Anyway, 50mm f1.4 Nikkor. If you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. Always love hearing from you. And look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching. You ready to go, Riley?